I wrote a few questions of what I come up with all the time for the last 12 years I've been in Greece, from people, especially from people that they come from a little bit of a Greek background, because we tend to, I was here 30 years too, and I was a visitor in Greece, and we tend to have the insight, or supposed insight, of having a cousin or a friend or someone in Greece telling us supposedly the realities of what's going on over there, which in my opinion is probably the biggest mistake sometimes we make. I made the same mistake too. Is Greece an expensive destination? The answer is yes. Since they joined the euro, it is not a destination where it used to be in the 70s or the early 80s, where people can come over and with the dollar being at 400 drachmas at the time, that you can spend for $1,000, you can spend your vacation in Greece. That's not going to happen. Even if we go back to drachma, it's not going to happen. So if we're looking for that back, 20 years, 30 years ago, of a destination that was a convenient destination, it's not going to happen anymore. We are an expensive destination. I just had a report that compared the price value of Greece with the rest of Europe. We're number 3 in that report of being a destination that the price value is there. Part of the reason is because the last, I'd say, 5 years, prices went down anywhere between 25 and 30%, as they should be, because in 07 and 08 was to the point that if there was an exuberance of pricing products that they didn't necessarily deserve to be priced that way. So now Greece has, in my opinion, a balanced pricing in terms of the product, what they offer. We have an expensive product like the Grand Bretagne, but we also have inexpensive products that are 3 or 4 star hotels. We have our own hotel in Rhodes, which used to be the Hilton for the ones of you that know Rhodes. Now it's a Sheraton, and it's priced at 100, 150 euro per night, and it's reasonable for someone that doesn't want to spend a 500 euro to go to Mykonos or to go to Santorini. The other thing is whether the taxi drivers steal money from you or cheat you. Yes, they do. Some of them. But you know what? I have the same problem when I travel. I travel a lot. I'm sure a lot of you do. You know what? I've had the same problem in other places. So the good thing is that the hotels do a lot of things about it, and also now that the regulations are changing, you will find that this will change also, because the taxis that they used to have monopoly no longer have a monopoly. And Uber, by the way, in Greece is one of the top. Greece is the top developing countries for Uber. It uses taxis, by the way. It doesn't use individual cars. The taxi drivers actually signed up with Uber, so now you can call a taxi for Uber, so you pay ahead. So the cheating part is no longer there. The other thing that I have to talk about is what we call the riots in Greece, and the demonstrations and the strikes, and whether they happen or they don't happen, and how it happens, and why, and how dangerous they are. Katerina can tell you because she comes to our hotel a lot, and we are in the center of that. First of all, there is a misconception. In 2007, the year that Greece had the best year ever over the last 8 years, we had 960 demonstrations in the center of Athens. In 2013, we had about 600, so it's less demonstrations. Some of them got a little more excitement, a little bit more violent possibly. Some people threw some things at the police, but that was happening even in 2007, to be honest. It just, the exposure that we got through BBC or CNN or Bloomberg, it was a different story. I can tell you that since I left last week, we had at least 5 or 6 demonstrations come by the hotel. Nobody knew about it. Nobody ever called me to say I can't get to the hotel. So there was an intense part of the demonstrations in 12, that is true. In 11 we had the occupation of the square, that is true. However, when you look at the overall picture, and if we exclude Syntagma Square sometimes, the rest of the country doesn't suffer from that. So there's no reason and the demonstrations happened. I missed a lot of planes. I missed a lot of my meetings because I couldn't get to a place in London or in Paris or anything else. And sometimes, you know, what we say in Greek, you know, καλύτερα να σου βγάλουν το μάτι παρά το όνομα. You know, better lose your eye than your name. It's your reputation. That's what we have. You know, I saw over 300 travel agents over the last 2 days. This thing comes up less and less because obviously they realize themselves that this is not something that is strange or new, and it will not stop. We have it in our blood, as you know, to demonstrate. So whether we're going to demonstrate peacefully or we're going to get all excited, that is true. There's no police anyway, by the way, following the demonstrations like they used to, and nothing has happened so far. Nothing major. Conference in Greece. It is a when you look at different cities in Europe, because this is who we're competing with, actually, Barcelona. Our major competitive cities are Barcelona, Prague, Rome, a little bit of Paris. This is what we compete with sometimes. Portugal, Lisbon, Madrid. That's the cities that Athens is competing with for conferences. One very lucrative conference, you know, a part of Conference First MICE is the incentives that are coming out of Canada and North America. Those stopped back in 2008 completely. We used to have anywhere in Athens, anywhere between 10 and 15 major incentive conferences, anywhere from Amway to JP Morgan, to anybody that had any kind of incentive program within their organization, they came. They started again in 2013. Where you can help is that, because the meeting planners of those organizations, safety for them, and knowing the destination is very important, because they take the responsibility of a group, and they have to recommend the destination to us. In terms of facilities, Athens has the facilities now. I mean, we can do up to 2,000-3,000 delegates, no problem. Most of those conferences, they're not that big. Most of those incentive conferences are anywhere between 100 people for the high end, the expensive ones, to 2,000 people for, you know, we just had one coming in for Herbalife. You know, it came through Athens and I was going to Costa Navarino. So for us, from the States, the thing that is interesting, you know, that now those conferences, by the way, now they go to Spain, they go to Portugal, they go to, you know, to possibly some of the middle parts of Europe. They go to Turkey, a lot of them. Turkey made a big dent on us, especially, you know, especially Istanbul, Constantinople, however you want to call it. It still is right now, from statistics, it comes up for one of the top 10 destinations worldwide, from zero. At one point, 10 years ago, I was part of I was overseeing Turkey for the last 12 years, until a couple of years ago. Turkey went from 0 to 100 at no time, and partly because the government got behind it. Sorry to say that in front of, but the government got behind it and supported a destination, and supported specific things about a destination. They had to do with culture. It had to do with the difference that what difference can offer as a destination, and not just to advertise the hotels or to advertise the beaches or to advertise the weather. They were specific in the advertisement. If you saw it, obviously, and it attracted people for specific reasons, not because they wanted to see Istanbul. They wanted to see what's different about Istanbul. That would make the difference for them. So for us, where you can help is with the organizations that you know that they send incentives overseas, to direct them towards Greece or to help us. HEPA, by the way, came last year, I think, finally, or the year before, I can't remember. and we're not, again, we're not a cheap destination when it comes to conferences, but we're a reasonable destination. We're not Paris, we're not Madrid, we're not, we're the same pricing as Barcelona, as Prague, as Lisbon. We're very competitive in that respect with competitive hotels. And the other thing about conferences for us is the seasonality. Greece suffers from seasonalities, you know. I mean, we make all our money, including Athens, by the way, within 4 months of the year, from May through September. You don't make it by that time of the year, you're not going to have a hotel. No matter where you're at. In Athens, the occupancy goes down to the 20s and 30s and 40s during the winter time. And that's when a lot of those conferences happen, in the fringes of it. The other thing I wanted to mention was one thing that we're promoting, and this is the reason we're here with Italy, or Italy has been taking part of some of our meetings, is we're trying to promote city breaks. City breaks are the most, the number one growing segment right now from the American and the European, external tourism. And city breaks we consider anywhere between 4 and 3 days, 5 days maximum of a break. Someone goes on a Thursday and comes back home on a Monday. Those are the things that in the US, in a way, and in Central Europe, they always existed. Greece never went after it. We've been talking about it, but never went after it. Athens is not one of the destinations for a city break. However, it offers more than most places that they are top destinations, like London. New York, London, by the way, and Paris are the top 3 destinations for city breaks. And after that, it's Barcelona, Madrid, and Istanbul. Istanbul is number 6. So we're not nowhere near there, of course, and we never will get there because Istanbul right now has over 15 5-star hotels, so they approach it differently. However, for us, we have a place where we can grow. I wanted to switch a little bit and go a little to investment because a part of my job also, both for my present owners, but also for Starwood to facilitate sometimes investment or desire to invest. We had some pretty big firms, as you know, come to Greece looking for investment in the hospitality industry. I wanted to say a couple of things from the operator's perspective and not necessarily from the investor perspective, because there's a difference. We by the way, as Starwood, operate or franchise our brands. We don't necessarily own no more than, we only own about 7% of our portfolio. Out of 1,200 hotels, we only own about 80, and some of them are joint ventures. So we operate hotels on behalf of the owner. So and especially in the international arena, when someone wants to invest, in a foreign country, they have to go through an operator, or they should go through an operator, because that's the only way that you can assure consistency, you can assure legitimate paperwork and daily routine, and also hopefully expertise that you don't get on a local level. There is a myth about the fact that Greece, you can go right now and get a cheap hotel in Greece, fix it, and make money on it. Unfortunately, it's not. Where the opportunities are existing hotels that they need renovations, or that they can change the branding and become more of a producing hotel than having the existing owner operate. There's a lot of them out there. Unfortunately, the banks right now, they're not going after the owners that they're behind in their money, in their loans. However, from what I know, it will happen. So the investment in Greece on those properties, it will happen, but it will not happen at the rate that everybody thinks it will happen or expected to happen. One thing about a model that doesn't, so far in Greece is a very difficult model, is buying a mixed-use project or converting a hotel into a mixed-use project. I had a lot of investors coming asking me to give them business plans based on a mixed-use project. Mixed-use project meaning that you buy a 200, 300-room hotel, you convert half of it into condominiums, you sell the condominiums, and the hotel is free for you. Or you build villas, the villas are sold, they're rented. A model that works in a lot of places. In Greece, is a very difficult model because there is no legislation that allows that right now. So that model that could bring investment, so far it hasn't been. However, it's something that the government is working on, and so any influence that you have in making that switch happen, because that's one way to survive, when you have a hotel that struggles throughout the year trying to make money. Just in terms of profitability for hotels in Greece compared to let's say to the US, the hotels in Greece tend to have a little bit higher payroll, primarily because of the way the labor market, the labor laws work. Because we pay by the month, we don't pay, and we don't have a lot of part-time workers, and we don't have a lot of contract workers. So that kind of puts in a dent a little bit into the profitability. However, a good operating hotel has an EBITDA of anywhere between 25 and 40%, depending on the situation that's in the type of hotel. So for investment for that part, it is not a simple process. It's getting better. However, I would caution whoever goes into Greece thinking that they will get a bargain I wouldn't do it for that. I would do it no different than I would do it here, where you find a reasonable priced product and you convert it into something that it can give you a little bit more profits. I wanted to show you a video, but I don't think I can. I'm part of the Hotel Association of Athens, and also SETE, for the ones that it's the organization that represents all of the tourism industry in Greece. We made a lot of progress over the last, I would say, 10 years in trying to legitimize our business. And the only way you can do this is by taking the stronger chains and the stronger owners that a lot of our owners are not hoteliers. A lot of our owners, like our owners, are ship owners. That their business in the hotel business only a side business, is not necessarily their only source of income. Because of that, they don't necessarily get involved in the day-to-day operation, or they don't have the interest of their they don't go into the political situation to try to influence decisions to help tourism, and that's unfortunate for us. So what SETE has done, and the Hotel Association of Athens has done, is trying to where before it was more of a I would say a very hotel-driven, tourism-driven organization, that they're more now like a political, more of a lobbying organizations trying to legitimize our business, because unfortunately, even though tourism is 1/3 of our GDP, if I look at all of the things that, because when we count the 23 billion, by the way, we count only what comes into Greece. What doesn't count is the farmer that produces the eggs that we use, the trucker, if you put that together, it's a lot more than that, 23 billion. So we're trying to become an industry that is respected, because right now there is sometimes no respect to what we do, because they still look at us as a hotel, as a tourist, that they will bring tourists in, we feed them, we bathe them, and that's not necessarily who we are. It's a legitimate business that can, with all the crisis and all the issues that Greece has, that tourism can help. By the way, this year alone, last year we had a 15%, almost 18% increase in occupancy and in income. This year already, on our books, we are between 15 and 20% up from last year. And the estimation will be closer to 30%. Part of our problem is capacity. You don't have enough capacity. Try to book a flight right now from Philadelphia to Greece in July. Can't get in there. And if you do, the ticket's so high. So the capacity part that Nick was talking about in terms of having more direct flights from the US or from North, Air Canada is packed. I don't know if anybody flew that route from Toronto. It's packed. And we did a presentation in Canada last year. Air Canada, if you could, they would put a second flight out of Montreal. So there is the capacity. The capacity is there. The last thing I want to talk about is the pre and post cruises and the cruise industry for Greece, how important it is. Hopefully, it's going to be ratified and it will be completely done. Carnival just signed a deal with the Port of Piraeus to be the home porting for the new ship in 2016. That's about 3,000, 3,500 cabins. So you can imagine the impact that ship can have, on Piraeus. A major part, if there was no cruise ships coming into Athens with home porting tomorrow, we would lose about 30% of our occupancy in the summer in Athens. That's how big is the pre and post cruise for us. Obviously, Barcelona took over. We were, by the way, the first cruise port in the world in Athens with Hypirotiki at the time. Unfortunately, it went a little bit by the wayside because of the cabotage that we had at the time, and that stopped the non-European flags coming in and out of Athens. That's history now. At least that's beyond us. So influence on bringing more cruise liners into Greece, into Athens, coming in and out of Athens, because there's a difference. One thing to stop, like they do in Mykonos or they do in Athens. There's about 1,700. I have the number over here. So 1,700,000 passengers coming through in Athens, but most of them are for the day. They come in, they go, they tour and they go back. They leave a little bit of money, but that's not where the important part for us is the home porting. Home porting where someone can come in, stay a couple of nights in Athens, on the way over, or on the way or the way back, and then the cruise ship leaves money obviously in the port. For us, it was an underestimated business. It was a business that nobody paid attention to because there was also that misconception and the myth that that cruising is a cheap industry that only people 80 plus go on there. That's not necessarily true. And Athens and the Mediterranean, they were one of the favorite destinations for the luxury small ships, Seabourn, Silver Seas, all those guys that they're the top of the industry in terms of luxury. Athens, Mykonos, Santorini, it's one of their favorites, port. So in that respect, there is that part again about luxury. By the way, we'll close with that. Tourism is tourism. You cannot have a country that is a luxury destination. We make the mistake, us as a, sometimes to say that. I hear that a lot of times from the minister, I hear that a lot of times from people saying we want to have only upscale tourists, we don't want to have backpackers, we don't want to have all inclusives and everything else. Let me tell you, I have people that they pay 150 euro in my hotel, and I have people paying 15,000 per night. I couldn't do with either of them. I do have the suite upstairs, the royal suite is 15,000 per night, and we get it a lot of times. So so even for me, it would be stupid to say, what, I don't want the people that pay 180. There was a lot of times that those people will come in and I need them because they're part of a group and there are 1,000 people, 1,000 room nights, and I will take it because 150,000 for us. So for the destination, there is no such thing as we're only a luxury. It could be a city or it could be a small destination that can claim that. But for us as Greece, what we want is tourism. Whether they end up spending an all-inclusive 100 euro per night, or they have the ability to spend more, that's fine, as long as we give them the product that they're looking for. We have a great example like that in Costa Navarino, one part of our hotels, where we have a Western on one side, which is more for families, and the luxury collection that is more for couples. It's upper upscale. And also, we just introduced a hotel within a hotel, which is all of the premium suites that they're going to be selling almost double the price for anything else. And all those people will coexist in one destination. I will be taking people with families that they don't want to spend a lot of money, and it will taking people that they have their own private pool, their own private beach, and their own, 500 square meter, villa. So it's okay. It does exist. So for us, we want tourism, and we want it. We want it for the 6 months, because we need to feel we still have problems. Our number one competition anymore, it is not Europe. It's Dubai. It's Bangkok. Not Bangkok, but all of the warm climate areas where someone in November can go, in October can go and spend their vacation on the beach. And that's our major competition right now. It's trying to convince people, or finding a new market, that they don't want to go to Dubai, and sit outside in the sun, if they can find a place to sit. However, but to come to Greece because they want something a little bit different, better weather, but not necessarily weather they can go and swim. And that's where we need to for us to extend our season, because we need to get to that point first before we can go into winter time. Winter time for us, right now, we tried a lot of things in our hotels that they're seasonal hotels, and we find out that it's very difficult to operate them year-round. Athens, however, and the perimeter of Athens has the possibility, and that's between conferences and weekends on other markets. Last thing, China, and because it doesn't affect you, of course, China and India. Greece, unfortunately, again doesn't have a big part of that market because of no direct flights into Greece. So the guy that leaves China to go to Greece, they have to go through Frankfurt or Istanbul or wherever to come to Greece. So they really have to come to Greece, otherwise they won't. So for us, again, it's capacity or it's ability to access. So thank you.
By the way, I'm one of the 150 a night persons.
Close. No, he pays a little bit more. But he's a good customer, by the way. And he stuck with us. The important part is, and I say this, he stuck with us through the tough times of 11 and 12. And all those people that stuck with us through 11 and 12, I give him a good price. No. But it is true. We had a lot of people that they were long-term customers of ours, guests of ours, that decided to go away. A very small minority. But there are other people like Nick that they stuck with us even through the tough times in 11 and 12.
Thank you, Tim. You're most gracious, and your whole staff is as well. What we'd like to do is to open up some Q&A at the time we have left. But before we do that, I'd like to also recognize Ambassador of Cyprus, George Chakali. George, thank you for coming with us. Got to mention Jim Marquetos, who's on our board of directors, is with us. and also Constantinos Georgiadis, who runs the leading tour operator for the Eastern Europe, Eastern Mediterranean, the world, but exclusively the Eastern Mediterranean, not for June holidays here. And thank you for being here, Costa. So with that, the ground rules are just identify who you are and ask the question, and Tim will answer it. Short answers and questions, and we'll try to get as many as we can.
What's the season look like for this year?
Ambassador Tom Miller, I forgot.
I know.
No, it's Athens is, I said it earlier, maybe about 15-20% higher. It's the first year, the last 12 years that I've been in Athens, that in February we're looking for dates for June, July to put people in. There are dates that were already sold out, which is very early to the season. For the islands, we had a setback with Ukraine and Russia. Probably 60-70% of the Russian market either will not come in or will come in at much cheaper prices. In some places, they will lose probably half their occupancy. We're trying to replace some of that market. However, that's the major setback. Even with that setback, we're still up between 10 and 15% in most of the places. So the season looks good. There was another statistic I didn't bring up. It was the pre and post cruises. Last year, it was the first time there were less cruises coming into to Greece, especially on the turnarounds. However, there were bigger ships, so we were able to get more passengers. And part of it was the effect of 12, because in 12 they made a decision to pull ships out for 14 because they worked 2 years out. This year, in 16, that number is going to go almost double because of, hopefully because of Carnival, if it happens, which I think it will. I mean, there's no reason not to happen. But even without Carnival, there is an increase of that. So the season looks good. We have a little bit of a question mark concern, obviously, if the political situation gets, if we have elections, basically. That's the only thing that can affect us right now.
Jim?
What's happening with the Steer Hotel in Grande?
Yeah, Steer, for us...
We hear so many stories.
Yeah, I tell you, it's as you know, we used to have the management of the hotel for the last 10 years. The state court, right? State court, huh?
State Council.
State Council. They rejected their plan that they had for the condominiums and the residences. So it took about a year and a half to do this. They supposedly, they told us that they will refile. My guess is they probably will not refile, so the sale probably not going to happen. We are right now converted the hotel into a franchise contract because we have no way of knowing if it's going to be open for another year or 6 months. So they run it themselves. However, they keep their brands. And they accept reservations right now through this February of 16. So nobody knows. Honestly, the plan that I saw, that it was, it would never get through. I don't care who it was. It was a very aggressive plan to convert it into residences and and change the use of the hotels. And that's why I said it earlier. People, they don't listen to us. It's a lot of times that an investor will come out from the outside and will tell them what you're asking is not feasible right now based on the legislation, the existing legislation. They think that they can pass it through.
So you're saying that Starwood does not manage it?
It's franchising it right now for this year. They run it and we give them the reservations.
Who does they?
Meaning the hotel itself. The bank, they have their own.
Back to the old days, huh?
Kind of. Not exactly.
So let me ask you a question.
Sorry, because the people that they were part of our management team are still there. They haven't left, other than the general manager. The rest of them are there. It is not. I don't think it'll be an issue of service. It won't deteriorate, quickly. possibly down the road. I think their biggest problem is going to be whether they're going to have the funds, because we were not taking reservations for almost a year, and for a year we're not taking any groups, and Asteria is very strong in groups, so they won't get the revenues that they were going to accept. So, but we'll find out. I think the next month or so we'll know.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, without being a dead horse, it is imperative, in my opinion, that more air routes
Yeah.
come into Greece.
Yeah.
Now, I can't speak for the rest of the world, although you alluded to the problems with the rest of the world yourself. But for the United States specifically, a market of 330 million people, which spend good amount of money when they go on. The best tourist is an American tourist in many ways. But Greece is a difficult place to get to in the sense that you have to connect for the most part, and only through seasonal, non-stop routes, and even those that you say are completely packed. But having said that, from this side of the equation, and we're working on that, and I don't know to what degree the Greek government, this particular one, we know what the previous ones have done, have tried to increase that. But at the same time, it is highly critical. And in your capacity and the associations of hoteliers and tourist organizations in Greece, to what degree do you engage with the government to get a legitimate air carrier? Aegean is a very good regional carrier, but it does not fly to the 7 continents of the world. Sure. And it is imperative for a country that has over 16% of its GDP, a major source of its revenue, to be able to control its own air routes into the country, not to depend on the Lufthansas, the Uniteds, the Americans, the Swiss Airs, and others of the world to bring in its tourism. What can you give us in terms of any briefing on that element?
I don't think there is any intent for anybody to follow that route. However, I can tell you this: the airport, and we talked about it a lot, is how they can approach this issue is different, because the airport needs to be a lot more flexible, especially with the
Landing right, you mean?
Landing rights and creating a second airport basically for the low cost carriers, because that's another, since Ryanair entered into Greece, they killed, all of a sudden the rates of Aegean went from there to here in routes that they should have been down there. There was no legitimate reason to fly to Rhodes and spend the 300 euro per person to fly round trip to Rhodes, which was crazy. Look, I have a little bit of a difference of opinion there. I feel that I think what we need to do as an industry, what you do, go and see the airlines that are already flying into Europe to fly into Greece, more often, or put additional routes. Reinstate the Atlanta route, have something from the West Coast, because think about it, the guy from the West Coast to come to Greece, he has to go through New York, or he has to go through Philadelphia or Canada. I tried to get my son from Dallas, and it is crazy. He has to go through 3 airports to get to Athens. So I think that the influence needs to be on the major carriers here that are already flying into Europe to look at Athens. There's all kinds of excuses I heard. I heard that it's too expensive. I heard that there was no load factors. Like you said, maybe not enough business seats. That's the first time I heard that, but I'm sure it's
That's
there.
what they told us at the meeting we had in Chicago.
But to me, it's I can tell you that right now we have tough time getting people into Athens at certain dates, because there's no, on the direct flights. So we need to, someone needs to be more aggressive. There is no way you can to subsidize those flights. By the way, we've done that route with some of our destinations, specifically in Peloponnese, and it's a very expensive proposition. And unless you have deep pockets and willing to spend a lot of money on that, to get a transatlantic flight to subsidize it like they did in Turkey and a few other places, it's a very expensive proposition. So for us, it's all about lobbying the airlines to do it.
If I may, and sorry for,
No.
I need to follow up on this, because one of the other things that United mentioned to us as their policy, is they don't get into the business of seasonal travel into destinations. And what they said is for Greece, that they monitor very closely, but their shoulder seasons, and everyone here knows what the shoulder seasons are, is what you talked about, the beginning of the year and the end of the year,
Right.
that there's enough traffic. And this is where I think the convention business and the alternative tourist destination that Greece can be. At the end of the day, maybe going to Dubai and other places, but no one has 2,500, 3,000 years of history and culture, and also the religious destination component and everything else. It doesn't get promoted enough. And I submit to you, and I know the members of the Greek government here today, that is the responsibility of the Greek government
True.
to be able to help to promote
Yeah.
that, and we can do as much as we can to lobby on our behalf here.
Yeah, that is true. We have another element that we really didn't talk about. I mentioned Dubai earlier. Now there is all of the Qatar, Etihad, and Emirates. Their one of their business plan is to fly people, to get people to fly them into the U.S. rather than taking European flights. By the way, you know, in Australia, and not Greek Australians, by the way, Australian business for us, it grew 1,000% over the last 2 years every year. It's now about 3%, 4% of our business, and the reason for that is because the Australians, to come to Greece, they had to go through Europe. And again, like the Chinese, once you go into Europe, there's no reason to fly from Frankfurt back up to the train. Since Etihad and Qatar and Emirates fly directly now, you have basically 4 flights a day out of Dubai and Doha and Abu Dhabi. That part, it decreased their flight cost. So someone that used to pay $2,000 or $3,000 dollars to fly from Australia, now it's anywhere between $1,100 and $1,200 for the economy. And the timing is cut almost to almost half, basically, because if you get a flight into Doha, you have 2 hours of layover, and you're in Greece, in 4.5, 5 hours. So what happened was that particular run, talking about the load, that thing influenced all of the business from for us for Australia. And it's business that also gives us Clover's business, because small groups, of course, but they're there. And now our next market that we're looking after, because of the connections against the Gulf, is India and Indonesia in general. And that's another part that of the world. We have a problem there for us, of course, that called Schengen, because those guys gotta go through hoops to get a visa, no matter how much money you have. But they do it, I mean, because they're used to it, obviously. And so that connection, if it goes back to the same thing about the load capacity and the frequency, the fact that we have now 4 flights a day out of the Gulf, I think 5 now with Saudi, it gives us that market that we never were able to get, because even the Greek Australians that wanted to come home, they were looking at a 32-hour flight. Now they're looking at 22, 24 hours maximum, 18, depends on the flight they take.
Well, I think we're going to
One more question. What's happening with the old airport?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They rejected the place there. We don't have anything to do with it, because we're trying to get there, but it's a long-term plan.
So
They seem to want to reject the plan, but nothing is happening. It's been very quiet the last 6 months.
Last question.
Thank you so much for an interesting presentation. Do you see the...
Identify yourself, please.
Abraham Abido, retired Foreign Service. Do you see the political instability and associated high unemployment rate, demonstrations, crime rate, and so on, all symptoms of a bad economy deterring some tourists?
Away.
That's what we see on our television screens, or reading the newspaper, the media.
You came late. You didn't hear his opening comments.
No, look, I'll put it in a different way. through the worst time, which was in 2011, in June and July of 2011, when the square was occupied, I had one person leave the hotel after they arrived to the hotel. And the reason they left is because they were from Indonesia and they had a bad experience back in their youth, and they actually left Greece. They didn't even stay in Athens. Once you're there, you see a different story. And the demonstration can last for the demonstrations had nothing to do with what's happening right now. I can tell you that. I mean, that's not. The demonstrations will keep happening no matter who's in government, no matter how good we do or how bad we do. I think the risk for us is, and I see this firsthand, is when we have a situation that that attracts the interest of Bloomberg, BBC, ABC, not ABC, CNBC, and CNN, or anybody else that are interested in that. That's when you get the pictures from the demonstrations, because they got nothing else to show, and they're sitting. I don't let them come from our balconies. They used to back a few years back. I don't let them film from our balconies anymore, because they're looking for things. They're report. I mean, that's what they have to do. I don't blame them for that, but the demonstrations come in the forefront of that because they're there for something else. They're not there for the demonstrations. When the demonstrations are happening, I'll show you pictures of our hotel. Someone threw a red paint, 2 days ago in our hotel. I mean, that will happen. I mean, I don't know if you can never avoid in Greece, but that's not dangerous, and that doesn't interfere. At the most, it will take you maybe an hour to come from the airport, or an hour and a half instead of 45 minutes. That's which happened to him. It happens to me personally a lot of times. I mean, I have to call my doorman to say what's happening because the traffic is not moving. Okay, it happens. But all I can tell you is it is not this situation here. It hasn't created a reason for someone not to come.
Thank you.
Anyway, we'll end it there. Tim, you're always so kind to me. Always leaving something in my room when I come, so I'd like to reciprocate
Thank you very
something
much.
similar
Thank
for
you.
you
It was
as well.
very-
Ladies and gentlemen, a hand
Thank
for
you very
Tim.
much. I hope I didn't disappoint.
Thank you very much.